Hey everyone, Linus here, and today we're talking about the unsung hero of your PC build, the motherboard. Now you might be thinking, Linus, why are we talking about motherboards? Isn't that boring? And you know what, you're not wrong. Motherboards aren't exactly the flashiest component. They don't have RGB lighting that could blind you, and they don't have clock speeds that sound like a jet engine taking off. But here's the thing, the motherboard is the foundation of your entire PC. It's the glue that holds everything together, the nervous system that allows all your components to communicate with each other. A good motherboard can make or break your build, so it's important to choose wisely. Think of it like building a house. You wouldn't just start slapping bricks together without a solid foundation, right? The same goes for your PC. The motherboard is that foundation, and choosing the right one will ensure your build is stable, reliable, and ready to handle anything you throw at it. So, let's dive in and break down the key things you need to consider when choosing a motherboard. We'll keep it simple, straightforward, and most importantly, fun. Because let's be real, building a PC should be an enjoyable experience, not a chore. Now, who's ready to get their motherboard on? Alright, first things first. Size. No, not the size of your monitor, though bigger is always better, right? We're talking about the form factor of your motherboard. This basically refers to its physical size and shape, which will determine what case you can use and how many expansion slots you'll have. The most common form factor is ATX, which stands for Advanced Technology Extended, because everything sounds cooler with advanced technology in front of it. ATX motherboards are the biggest of the bunch, offering plenty of space for expansion slots, RAM slots, and all those other goodies you love. If you're looking for something a bit smaller, there's Micro-ATX, or MATX for short. These boards are about 25% smaller than ATX boards, making them a good choice for more compact builds. You'll have to sacrifice some expansion slots, but you'll still have plenty of power for most gaming and productivity tasks. And finally, for those who like to live life on the edge or just have very limited desk space, there's Mini-ITX. These boards are tiny, but don't let their size fool you. They can still pack a serious punch, especially if you're willing to spend a bit more on high-end components. So, which form factor is right for you? That depends on your needs and preferences. If you want maximum expandability and don't mind a larger case, go with ATX. If you prefer something smaller and more portable, Max is a good option. And if you're building a super compact system or a home theater PC, Mini-ITX might be the way to go. Now that we've got the size sorted out, let's talk about the brains of the operation, the chipset and socket. The chipset is basically a set of chips on the motherboard that controls how data flows between different components like your CPU, RAM, and storage devices. Think of it like the traffic controller of your motherboard, making sure everything runs smoothly and efficiently. The socket, on the other hand, is where your CPU goes. It's important to make sure your motherboard socket is compatible with the CPU you want to use. You can't just shove any old CPU into any old socket, just like you can't put a square peg in a round hole, unless you're really good at forcing things, but trust me, that's not a good idea here. Now I know what you're thinking, Linus, this is getting a bit technical, just tell me what I need to know. Okay, I hear you. Here's the deal. Intel and AMD are the two big players in the CPU game, and each has its own set of chipsets and sockets. Intel's latest chipsets include Z790, B760, and H770, while AMD has X670E, X670, and B650. Each chipset offers different features and capabilities, so it's important to choose one that aligns with your needs and budget. Alright, let's talk RAM. No, not the kind you find grazing in a field, though I'm sure they're lovely creatures. I'm talking about random access memory, the stuff that lets your computer store and access data quickly. More RAM means you can have more programs and applications open at the same time without your PC slowing to a crawl. When choosing a motherboard, you need to pay attention to the type of RAM it supports, DDR4 or DDR5, the number of RAM slots it has, and the maximum RAM speed it can handle. DDR5 is the newer standard, offering faster speeds and improved efficiency, but it's also more expensive. If you're on a budget, DDR4 is still a solid option. As for RAM slots, most motherboards come with 4, which is plenty for most users. And finally, make sure the motherboard's maximum RAM speed is compatible with the RAM you plan to use. There's no point in buying super fast RAM if your motherboard can't keep up. Section 5. Expansion and Connectivity Planning for the Future. One of the great things about building your own PC is the ability to customize it to your liking. And that's where expansion slots and connectivity come in. Expansion slots allow you to add dedicated graphics cards, sound cards, Wi-Fi adapters, and other peripherals to your system. The most common type of expansion slot is PCIe, which comes in different versions like PCIe 3.0, PCIe 4.0, and PCIe 5.0. The higher the version number, the faster the data transfer speeds. Make sure your motherboard has enough PCIe slots for your needs, especially if you plan on adding a dedicated graphics card or multiple storage devices. Connectivity is another important factor to consider. How many USB ports do you need? Do you need built-in Wi-Fi or Bluetooth? What about audio outputs? Make sure the motherboard you choose has all the ports and connections you need, both now and in the future. Section 6. Power up. Choosing the right PSU for your motherboard. Now, before we move on, let's talk about power. No, not the kind that comes from lifting heavy things, though that's important too. I'm talking about the power supply unit, or PSU, which provides power to your entire system. The motherboard plays a crucial role in delivering that power to your components, so it's essential to choose a PSU that's compatible with your motherboard and can handle the power demands of your system. Look for a PSU with a wattage rating that's at least 100 watts higher than your estimated system power consumption. This will ensure your system has enough juice to run smoothly, even under heavy load. Section 7. Don't forget the bells and whistles, extra features to consider. Alright, now for the fun part, extra features. Motherboards these days come with all sorts of bells and whistles, from fancy RGB lighting to integrated Wi-Fi 6E and even built-in sound cards that would make an audiophile blush. Now I know what you're thinking, Linus, do I really need RGB lighting on my motherboard? And the answer is, maybe. Look, I'm not here to judge. If you want your PC to light up like a Christmas tree, go for it. But if you're on a budget, you can probably skip the fancy lighting and focus on more practical features. Some other features to consider include overclocking support for squeezing extra performance out of your CPU, dual BIOS for backup in case one BIOS fails, and integrated I/O shields for easier installation. It all depends on your needs and budget. Section 8. Future-proofing your build planning for tomorrow's upgrades. One of the best things about building your own PC is that you can upgrade it over time. But to do that effectively, you need to think about future-proofing your build. This means choosing components that will still be relevant and compatible with future upgrades. When it comes to motherboards, future-proofing means choosing a board with the latest chipset, socket, and expansion slots. This will give you more upgrade options down the line and ensure your system stays relevant for longer. For example, if you're building a PC today, you might want to consider a motherboard with a PCIe 5.0 slot, even if you don't plan on using a PCIe 5.0 graphics card right away. This will give you the option to upgrade to a faster graphics card in the future without having to replace your motherboard. Section 9. Balancing budget and performance. Finding the sweet spot. Now I know what you're thinking. Linus, this is all great, but I'm on a budget. And I hear you. Building a PC can be expensive, especially if you're going for top-of-the-line components. But here's the good news. You don't have to break the bank to get a great motherboard. The key is to find a balance between budget and performance. Set a realistic budget for your motherboard and stick to it. Don't be afraid to consider models from less well-known brands, as they can often offer great value for money. And remember, you can always upgrade your motherboard later on if you need more features or performance. The important thing is to choose a motherboard that meets your current needs and budget. Section 10. Trustworthy brands, sticking with the reliable names. Speaking of brands, there are a ton of motherboard manufacturers out there, each with its own strengths and weaknesses. Some of the most reputable and trustworthy brands include Asus, Gigabyte, MSI, and ASRock. These brands have a long history of producing high-quality motherboards with excellent features, performance, and reliability. They also offer good customer support and warranties, which can be invaluable if something goes wrong. That's not to say that other brands are bad, but sticking with well-known and reputable brands can give you peace of mind and reduce the risk of running into problems. Section 11. Conclusion: your motherboard, your PC, your way, so there you have it. Choosing the right motherboard doesn't have to be a daunting task. Just remember to consider your needs, budget, and future plans. Do your research, read reviews, and don't be afraid to ask for advice from more experienced builders. And most importantly, have fun with it. Building a PC is a rewarding experience, and choosing the right motherboard is the first step towards creating a system you can be proud of. Until next time, happy building.